Welcome in, everybody. Today, we're diving into leadership. Everyone's talking about hybrid work and how it's changing everything.
Yeah.
And we found this neurobusiness expert, Marynês Pereira, who is not holding back on what leaders need to do differently.
Yeah, she does not mince words, and I think that's what makes her work so valuable.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. One of the things that really jumped out, at least for me, was how much micromanagers are struggling with this whole hybrid thing. It's like they were fine when everybody was in the office,
Right, butts in seats.
Exactly. But now that some people are remote, some are in office, it's like their whole system is breaking down.
It's like they built their whole leadership style on being able to constantly check in, look over people's shoulders.
Totally. Which I guess worked. I mean, it's not good leadership, but in an office setting, I guess it got the job done.
Right, but now it's totally backfiring.
And Pereira's research actually found that micromanagers have way lower success rates with their teams now.
And I can see why. Think about it. If you're constantly worried about your boss breathing down your neck, even virtually,
oh my gosh, stressful.
Yeah. It's like you're being set up to fail. There's no trust there.
And that's the other thing that struck me. You'd think with nobody watching, people would just slack off, right?
Right.
But Pereira is saying the opposite is happening. Like, productivity is actually up in a lot of cases.
Yeah, she found that people are actually getting more done when they have the flexibility to manage their own time and work style.
Which kind of blows the whole butts and seats thing out of the water.
Totally. It's not about where you work. It's about the results.
Yeah. And that's where I think this whole idea of the leader as a mentor comes in.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Well, it's like instead of just being the boss, the one with all the answers, you have to become more of a guide, someone who helps their team navigate all this new stuff.
Because let's be honest, there's no rule book for this new world of hybrid work.
Right. So you need a leader who can say, okay, I don't have all the answers, but let's figure this out together.
It's about empowering people to solve problems, to be creative, to adapt.
Exactly. And that's something that Pereira calls out. Some leaders just can't seem to let go of the old ways. She calls them digital dinosaurs.
Okay, love that.
Because they're trying to use technology to just recreate that old, outdated office dynamic.
Yeah, like making everyone keep their cameras on all the time or using monitoring software.
I heard horror stories about that.
It creates such a toxic environment, you know? Like Big Brother is watching you. Who can be creative when you feel like you're constantly being watched?
It just kills innovation.
Exactly. And what about all the pointless meetings? Like, we've traded in commutes for just endless Zoom calls.
Oh, the meeting mania. Pereira is not a fan. She says a lot of these meetings are just about replicating that feeling of being in an office.
Yeah, instead of actually getting things done.
Right. Like, what are we even doing here?
It's like people are afraid of the quiet. They need that constant buzz of activity, even if it's not productive.
It's like they haven't figured out that just because you can have a meeting doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. Meetings should be purposeful, with clear goals and outcomes, not just a way to fill the time. It's almost like they're afraid of the quiet. They need that constant buzz of activity, even if it's not productive.
Yeah, it's like they haven't figured out that just because you can have a meeting doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. Meetings should be purposeful with clear goals and outcomes, not just a way to fill the time.
Totally. And it goes back to that whole trust issue again, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Pereira found that the less trust there is in a team, the more these kinds of counterproductive behaviors crop up.
It's like they're trying to micromanage their way out of a problem that micromanaging created in the first place.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle. And the thing is, Pereira's research also shows that this whole command and control leadership style, it just doesn't work in this new world of work.
Yeah, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
It's not just that it's ineffective. It actually stifles the kind of creative problem solving that we need more than ever.
Because the problems are more complex, the solutions aren't always obvious.
Right. So you need a team that's empowered to think outside the box, to experiment, to take risks.
Which requires a certain level of trust.
Absolutely. If you're constantly worried about making a mistake or being punished for trying something new, you're not going to be very innovative.
And that's where I think Pereira's work is so important, because it's not just about pointing out what's wrong, it's about offering a different way forward.
Exactly. She's saying, hey, we have an opportunity here to build something better, more flexible, more human-centered.
And more effective, ultimately.
Right. Because when people feel trusted and supported, they do their best work.
It's like that old saying, you get more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating a positive feedback loop where people feel valued and appreciated and therefore they're more likely to go up above and beyond.
And Pereira found that this is especially important for leaders who maybe excelled in that old traditional office setting,
The ones who thrived on FaceTime and being seen as the go-to person.
Exactly. But now that everyone's working differently, those old playbooks don't work anymore.
It's a whole new ball game, and it requires a different set of skills.
Like what kind of skills?
Well, for one, communication becomes even more crucial when you're not interacting face-to-face all the time.
Because it's so easy for things to get lost in translation over email or Slack or whatever.
Exactly. And it's not just about the quantity communication, but the quality as well.
Yeah, it's like you really have to be intentional about how you're communicating because you don't have those little side conversations or those moments where you can just pop into someone's office and clear something up.
Right. And that's where empathy becomes so important because you have to be aware of how your words are landing. You know what I mean?
Totally, because you don't always have those visual cues like body language and facial expressions.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about being really mindful of your tone and being very clear and concise in your messaging.
And making sure that everyone feels heard and included, even if they're not physically present.
Right. And I think that's a perfect example of how this whole shift to hybrid work, it's not just about using Zoom or Slack instead of meeting in person.
Right. It's about a whole new way of thinking about leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that people have different needs, different work styles, and different lives outside of work.
And that flexibility is key.
Absolutely. And leaders who can embrace that flexibility, who can create a culture of trust and empowerment, those are the ones who are going to thrive in this new world of work.
It's almost like we're going back to some of those more human-centered values, you know?
Right. Instead of just treating people like cogs in a machine, it's about recognizing their humanity, their individuality.
And the fact that they have lives outside of work.
Exactly. And Pereira found that leaders who understand this, who encourage their teams to set boundaries and prioritize their well-being, they actually end up with higher productivity and morale.
It's like a win-win for everyone.
Totally. Because when people feel supported and respected, they're more likely to be engaged and committed to their work.
Makes sense. So where does this all lead? What does the future hold for leadership as we continue to navigate this hybrid world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, based on what we're seeing now and what Pereira's research suggests, I think we're going to see a move away from that traditional top-down leadership style.
Yeah, it seems like those days are numbered.
And instead, we're going to see more collaborative leadership styles emerge, where leaders are more like facilitators or coaches.
Guiding and supporting their teams rather than dictating to them.
Exactly. And I think that's a really exciting prospect because it means that leadership will become more accessible to more people.
Right. It won't just be about who has the loudest voice or who's been in the game the longest.
It'll be about who can inspire and empower others, regardless of their title or their tenure.
It's like we're redefining what it means to be a leader in the 21st century.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good thing because the old model, it just wasn't working for a lot of people.
And it definitely wasn't designed for this new world of work.
Nope. So it's time for a change. And I think we're starting to see those changes happen all around us.
Well, that's a pretty optimistic note to end on. Gives me hope for the future of work.
Me too. It's an exciting time to be thinking about these things and to be part of shaping this new landscape.
It really is. So as we all continue to navigate this new world of hybrid work, let's remember to be kind to ourselves, to each other, and to embrace the changes that are coming.
I love that. Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into leadership in a hybrid world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.